My name is Julie Harrison, 35 years old, and until last month, I was the Chief Innovation Officer at Techvision Enterprises. 7 years of dedication, countless late nights, and revolutionary ideas that transformed our company. Then came that town hall meeting. 300 colleagues watched as I walked onto the stage expecting recognition. Instead, I received termination papers and public humiliation. Nobody knew that 3 years earlier, our CEO had signed a special contract with one specific clause worth $86 million. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like and subscribe button, and share your own workplace betrayal story if you have one. Trust me, this story might just save your career one day. I grew up in Millfield, a small Midwestern town where dreams often stayed just that. My parents worked at the local factory, scraping together just enough for us to get by. College seemed impossible until I earned a partial scholarship to State University. Even then, I worked 3 jobs simultaneously, stocking shelves at midnight, waiting tables at dawn, and tutoring between classes. My finance degree opened a narrow door into the tech industry, but being a woman in that environment felt like swimming upstream through concrete. My first position at DataLink Solutions involved fetching coffee as often as analyzing data. I watched male colleagues with half my qualifications receive promotions while I remained stuck. Still, I stayed late, learned everything I could about emerging technologies, and built a reputation for solving problems others considered impossible. 7 years ago, Techvision Enterprises was expanding rapidly. When they advertised for a senior product development position, I threw everything into my application and interview process. The company projected an image of innovation and inclusion, with sleek glass offices and motivational quotes about disruption and equality adorning the walls. Richard Evans, the CEO, personally conducted my final interview. Tall with salt and pepper hair and an easy smile, he spoke passionately about revolutionizing the industry. He seemed genuinely impressed by my portfolio and hired me on the spot with a salary that finally reflected my worth. My first years at Techvision were exhilarating. I thrived in product development, consistently delivering solutions that exceeded expectations. Clients praised my ability to translate technical features into tangible business benefits. While many of my colleagues focused solely on technology, I understood the human side of innovation. As I proved myself, key characters entered my professional life. Natalie Jefferson, our Chief Operating Officer, became my earliest champion. A brilliant strategist with 20 years of industry experience, she recognized my potential before anyone else. During our weekly coffee meetings, she offered invaluable guidance about navigating corporate politics while maintaining integrity. Thomas Wilson, our Chief Financial Officer, represented the old guard. His traditional views on corporate hierarchy made him skeptical of my rapid rise. In meetings, he would scrutinize my proposals with extra rigor, often questioning whether my innovations were financially sustainable, despite their proven returns. Diana Foster headed human resources with iron discipline. Her complete loyalty to Richard was evident in how she implemented his vision, without question. When anyone raised concerns about workload or culture issues, Diana would remind them of their privilege to work at such a prestigious company. My own team grew to include James Anderson, my assistant whose organizational skills and discretion proved invaluable, and Elaine Patterson, a brilliant analyst who could find patterns in data that others missed. Together, we became a formidable innovation unit. My major breakthrough came 3 years into my tenure when I developed Techvision Vision, an artificial intelligence platform that transformed how our clients managed their operations. The platform increased client revenue by an average of 40% while reducing their operational costs. Our own company revenue jumped 30% in 6 months following the launch. Recognizing the importance of company culture, I also initiated workplace programs that reduced employee turnover by 35%. My philosophy was simple but effective. Treated well, people produce exceptional work. The quarterly innovation retreats I organized became legendary for producing breakthrough ideas in relaxed environments. But my crowning achievement came when I secured GlobalCore Industries as our client. A multinational corporation with vast resources, they had rejected Techvision 3 times previously. I spent months researching their pain points and developing a customized solution that addressed their specific challenges. My presentation to their executive team resulted in an $86 million annual contract, the largest in Techvision history. Richard celebrated my success publicly, inviting me to exclusive executive dinners and featuring me in company communications. My promotion to Chief Innovation Officer followed soon after, making me the youngest C-suite executive in company history. My rapid ascent caused whispers, but results spoke louder than gossip, or so I thought. What I failed to see was how Techvision culture harbored toxic elements beneath its progressive veneer. Success was celebrated, but only when it reinforced the established power structure. Innovation was encouraged until it threatened the status quo. The apparent meritocracy had invisible boundaries that I unwittingly crossed. As my public profile grew with industry-speaking engagements and innovation awards, I noticed subtle shifts in Richard's behavior. His congratulatory emails became shorter. His office door closed more often. Still, I believed in the company mission and my role in advancing it. I balanced ambition with genuine care for my colleagues, mentoring junior staff, and giving credit generously. I never imagined that my dedication would be rewarded with betrayal, or that my greatest professional achievement would become the very reason for my downfall. The GlobalCore contract that brought unprecedented success to Techvision contained a hidden time bomb, one that would eventually explode in my face. The changes were subtle at first, so subtle I questioned whether I was imagining things. During the executive meeting 6 months ago, I presented a comprehensive plan for expanding our AI capabilities. Despite bringing similar proposals that had previously earned enthusiastic approval, I was met with polite nods and quick transitions to other topics. My follow-up emails seeking feedback went unanswered for days. 2 weeks later, I discovered I had been removed from key client communications with GlobalCore. When I questioned this, the account manager awkwardly explained that Richard wanted to personally oversee our largest client relationship. It seemed reasonable enough on the surface, yet the explanation felt hollow. At the annual technology summit, where I was scheduled to represent Techvision, Richard unexpectedly appeared instead. He cited urgent company needs requiring my attention back at headquarters, but when I returned, no such emergency existed. The real sting came when industry publications featured Richard discussing innovations my team had developed, with no mention of our involvement. My confusion deepened when project responsibilities began shifting away from my department. The advanced machine learning initiative we had spearheaded for 18 months was suddenly reassigned to Trevor Harris in research and development. The explanation offered was about distributing workload, but my team's schedule had already accommodated the project. Late one evening, while working on quarterly projections, I overheard Richard and Thomas in the conference room next to my office. Their voices carried through the thin wall as they discussed loyalty and company direction. Richard's voice, normally measured, sounded agitated. "You have to understand the bigger picture, Thomas. With the IPO on the horizon, we need absolute alignment at the top. Questions about loyalty complicate things." IPO plans? This was the first I had heard about taking Techvision public, a move that would make the executive team extraordinarily wealthy through their equity packages. As Chief Innovation Officer, shouldn't I have been informed of such a pivotal strategic direction? The knot in my stomach tightened. As weeks passed, my isolation increased. Executive lunches happened without my invitation. Strategy sessions were rescheduled when I was traveling. My input on new initiatives was sought after decisions had already been made. The cognitive dissonance between my title and my actual influence grew daily. Self-doubt crept in. Was I becoming paranoid? Had my performance declined without me realizing it? I reviewed my department metrics, finding all targets not just met but exceeded. Client satisfaction scores for our innovations ranked highest in the company. The GlobalCore relationship continued to expand under my team's stewardship, despite my reduced involvement. Seeking clarity, I requested a private meeting with Natalie, who had always been straight with me. In her office with the door closed, her typical confident demeanor seemed subdued. "Something isn't right, Julie," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't say more, but trust your instincts. Document everything." That afternoon, I attempted to access the financial projections for the GlobalCore account, documents I had previously reviewed quarterly. My access had been revoked. The system message indicated I needed special permission from the CFO office. When I called Thomas' assistant to request access, she informed me the policy had changed just last week. That night, I stayed late searching through our contract management system. Most high-level agreements were accessible to C-suite executives as a matter of course. In the GlobalCore file, I found something puzzling, a special addendum signed by Richard 3 years earlier, right after I had brought the client on board. Most of the document was restricted, but the title referenced performance incentives and retention clauses. Why would Richard have a special agreement tied to my biggest client? Rather than confront this directly, I doubled down on performance. I secured 2 additional major clients, developed enhancements to our core platform that increased efficiency by 20%, and mentored 3 junior team members into leadership positions. If there were questions about my value, I would answer them with undeniable results. One evening around 9, I encountered Thomas in the parking garage. Normally formal and distant, he seemed unusually contemplative. "You know, Harrison," he said, using my last name as he always did, "you should watch your back. Not everyone appreciates disruption, even when it comes disguised as innovation." His cryptic warning hung in the air as he walked to his car. The following week, my team completed a revolutionary new feature for our platform that allowed predictive analysis of market trends with unprecedented accuracy. GlobalCore representatives were ecstatic during the demonstration, immediately requesting full implementation. Their enthusiasm should have been cause for celebration, but Richard's reaction was strangely muted when I reported the success. Shortly afterward, Richard began taking unusual interest in my relationship with Jessica Taylor, my main contact at GlobalCore. He requested detailed notes from our meetings and insisted on joining calls that would normally have been routine. His questions focused on contract renewal terms and implementation timelines. Then came the calendar invite that would change everything, a company-wide town hall to celebrate achievements and discuss future vision. Such events typically happened quarterly, but this one was scheduled just 3 weeks after our last all-hands meeting. The invitation emphasized attendance was mandatory for all employees, with video links for remote team members to ensure everyone participated. A sense of foreboding settled over me. Something significant was happening behind the scenes, and somehow I stood at the center of forces I couldn't work out. The special contract, the IPO rumors, the systematic isolation, and now this unusual town hall all suggested a calculated plan in motion. I just couldn't understand what I had done to deserve becoming its target. The morning after receiving the town hall invitation, I arrived early to prepare for an important client presentation, only to find my carefully created materials missing from the shared drive. The folder existed, but the contents had vanished. IT support claimed it must be a user error, despite my meticulous digital organization system that had never failed before. While recreating my presentation under extreme time pressure, I discovered something even more disturbing. My name had been removed from project documents I had personally created. The revision history showed the changes happened at 2:30 in the morning, with Thomas Wilson listed as the user who made the modifications. Why would our CFO be editing technical documents in the middle of the night? During the next executive meeting, Richard praised Trevor Harris for his outstanding GlobalCore retention strategy. The strategy presented was identical to the one my team had developed months earlier. Trevor avoided eye contact, as he accepted congratulations for work he had not done. I started to object, but Natalie's subtle headshake stopped me. Her eyes communicated a clear message. Not now. As planning began for the upcoming town hall, I realized I hadn't been included in any preparatory sessions. When I asked Diana about this, she replied with practiced neutrality that my participation wasn't necessary for the initial planning phases. I would be briefed when appropriate. Given my position as Chief Innovation Officer, The exclusion made no sense. That afternoon, I overheard two marketing team members discussing rumors about my difficult personality and demanding management style. These characterizations contradicted my consistently high leadership scores on employee satisfaction surveys. Someone was actively working to undermine my reputation. The situation escalated when IT notified me about security reviews of my company accounts. The email claimed the review was routine, but when I checked with colleagues, no one else had received similar notifications. My access to various systems became increasingly restricted, each limitation explained away with vague references to protocol or system updates. Unable to ignore these developments any longer, I requested a meeting with Diana Foster. In her meticulously organized office, she maintained professional cordiality while informing me that several concerns had been raised about my department leadership. "Could you specify these concerns?" I asked, struggling to maintain composure. "We take confidentiality seriously, Julie. I can only say that the issues are being thoroughly investigated." "By whom? And why wasn't I informed when these alleged concerns were first raised?" Diana smiled thinly. "The proper procedures are being followed. Richard has been personally overseeing the matter." The mention of Richard's personal involvement confirmed my growing suspicion that these issues stemmed from the top. As I left Diana's office, I noticed a document on her desk with the heading Performance Improvement Plan, Julie Harrison. They were building a case against me. Returning to my department, I discovered 3 team members had been reassigned to other projects without my knowledge or approval. My authority was being systematically undermined. James, my assistant, approached my office with unusual caution. "I need to tell you something," he whispered, closing the door. "People are talking. Something strange is happening with the town hall planning. Your name keeps coming up in meetings I'm not supposed to know about." "What are they saying exactly?" I pressed. He hesitated. "I only caught fragments. Something about recognition and making examples. And Trevor has been meeting privately with Richard every day this week." Later that day, I received an email specifying that the town hall would feature special recognition for top performers. A separate note instructed me to prepare brief remarks but provided no details about the context. The ambiguity felt deliberate, designed to keep me off balance. That evening, I met Natalie at a small cafe 3 blocks from the office. Even there, she spoke cautiously, glancing around before addressing anything sensitive. "Julie, I can only say this once. There are contractual obligations coming into play that involve significant financial implications. Review your documents carefully. Pay attention to dates and clauses." Before I could ask for clarification, she received a text message and abruptly ended our conversation. Her warning only deepened my confusion and concern. That night, while searching through my files for anything that might explain Natalie's cryptic message, I accidentally found a partial document that had been misfiled in our shared system. It referenced a retention clause and a 5-year threshold in relation to the GlobalCore contract. The document was incomplete, but it suggested some kind of deadline approaching in connection with our largest client. I checked the original contract date. GlobalCore had signed with us almost exactly 5 years ago, just days after the upcoming town hall. Was there a connection between this anniversary and the strange events unfolding around me? Unable to sleep, I spent the night reviewing my contributions to Techvision, documenting key innovations, client relationships, and financial impacts. If a confrontation was coming, I would be prepared with irrefutable evidence of my value to the company. The morning of the town hall arrived with unusual activity throughout the building. Professional photographers roamed the lobby, and several people I didn't recognize, wearing visitor badges, conversed with Richard in the executive conference room. Their formal attire and serious demeanor suggested they might be board members or legal counsel, neither of which typically attended regular town halls. As employees gathered for the event, the atmosphere felt charged with anticipation. Colleagues who normally greeted me warmly suddenly found reasons to avoid conversation. Something significant was about to happen, and somehow everyone seemed to know about it except me. The main auditorium had been transformed for the town hall. Usually arranged with simple rows of chairs, today it featured elaborate decorations, professional lighting, and a stage with a podium bearing the company logo. A large screen displayed a slideshow of company achievements, many featuring innovations my team had developed. Conspicuously, none of the images included me. The 300-plus employees filed in, filling every seat. I noticed board members and what appeared to be legal representatives seated in the front row. Most unusual was the presence of 2 security guards positioned discreetly at the side exits, something I had never seen at previous company events. Richard took the stage wearing an expensive suit that differed from his usual business casual attire. His practiced smile did not reach his eyes as he welcomed everyone and began speaking about company values, emphasizing loyalty and team alignment repeatedly. His tone carried an undertone of rehearsed gravitas. The awards ceremony began with recognition for various employees. The marketing team received accolades for the campaign that incorporated my team innovation framework. The engineering department was praised for the back-end systems my department had specified. Trevor Harris was given special recognition for client retention excellence, particularly highlighting his work with GlobalCore. As I watched achievements I had spearheaded being attributed to others, my discomfort grew into alarm. The entire presentation felt like a systematic erasure of my contributions to Techvision's success. Then, Richard's voice shifted to a more serious tone. Leadership requires difficult decisions. It demands accountability at all levels, especially from those in positions of greatest influence. Would Julie Harrison please join me on stage? The spotlight found me as conversations hushed. My heart pounded as I made my way to the stage, still clinging to hope that this might finally be recognition for the GlobalCore relationship I had cultivated. Perhaps the strange behaviors of recent weeks had been elaborately misleading preparations for a significant promotion or special project announcement. As I took my place beside Richard, his expression hardened. Instead of the award or recognition I had momentarily allowed myself to anticipate, he handed me a thick envelope. Julie Harrison, after review of numerous performance and ethical concerns, Techvision Enterprises is terminating your employment, effective immediately. The words struck like physical blows. Ethical concerns? My mind raced to make sense of the accusation as Richard continued, his voice projecting throughout the silent auditorium. Evidence has been uncovered showing repeated violations of company policy, misrepresentation of achievements, and actions contrary to Techvision best interests. This decision has been reviewed and approved by the board of directors and legal counsel. The audience sat in stunned silence. Then came scattered murmurs, followed by uncomfortable laughter from somewhere in the back rows. The public spectacle was designed for maximum humiliation. "This is absurd," I protested, reaching for the microphone. "My record speaks for itself. I have consistently exceeded every performance metric and built our most valuable client relationship." The microphone cut off mid-sentence. Richard smoothly stepped away, gesturing to Diana, who approached with a tablet displaying what she claimed was evidence against me. "We have documented instances of taking credit for team contributions, unauthorized client communications, and misrepresentation of development timelines," Diana announced, her voice clinically detached as though reading a weather report rather than destroying a career. I scanned the audience desperately. Natalie sat rigid, distress evident in her expression. But she remained silent. Trevor stared at his hands. Most colleagues avoided eye contact entirely. The security guards moved toward the stage, making clear that any further protest would result in physical removal. As the reality of what was happening sank in, numbness spread through me. This wasn't merely termination, it was character assassination before everyone I had worked with for 7 years. Diana took my company phone, badge, and laptop on the spot. I was permitted to collect my purse from under my seat, then escorted out through the main lobby, past departments I had helped build and colleagues I had mentored. Some looked away in embarrassment, others watched with morbid curiosity. The walk felt endless, each step heavier than the last. Outside, summer heat struck me as I stood disoriented on the sidewalk. 7 years of dedication ended in 5 minutes of orchestrated humiliation. No exit interview. No opportunity to transition projects. No chance to say goodbye to my team. The calculated cruelty of it all suggested something far beyond normal corporate politics. That evening, boxes arrived at my apartment containing personal items from my office. Family photos, awards, and mementos had been hastily packed, some items broken in the process. My collection of innovation books was missing, as were my notebooks containing project ideas and research notes. Within hours, industry contacts began messaging about rumors circulating online. Social media buzzed with speculation about what ethical violations had prompted such a dramatic dismissal. Former colleagues, fearing association with whatever misconduct I had allegedly committed, removed connections to me on professional networks. Alone in my apartment, I stared at the wall for hours, replaying every interaction, decision, and project from the past several months. Nothing explained the severity or public nature of my termination. This went beyond normal corporate restructuring or performance issues. This was personal, deliberate, and precisely timed. As midnight approached, I finally allowed the tears to come. No longer able to maintain the professional composure that had become second nature. The betrayal cut deeply, not just from Richard, but from those who had witnessed my humiliation and said nothing. The career I had built with such determination lay in ruins around me, my professional reputation potentially irreparable. The question that kept circling through my mind, preventing sleep despite emotional exhaustion: why would Richard destroy a high-performing executive who had brought unprecedented success to the company? What could possibly justify such an extreme and public dismissal? The answers would come, but first, I had to survive the darkest period of my professional life. The week following my public termination passed in a fog of shock and depression. I ignored calls from concerned friends, barely ate, and replayed the town hall humiliation in an endless mental loop. The carefully cultivated professional identity I had built over years had been shattered in minutes. Industry contacts who had eagerly sought my insights now maintained careful distance, unsure whether association with me might harm their own reputations. On the 8th day, an insistent knocking at my apartment door finally broke through my isolation. James stood in the hallway, nervously glancing over his shoulder. "I shouldn't be here," he said, stepping inside quickly. "If anyone at Techvision found out I came, I'd be fired immediately. But what they did to you was wrong. Completely wrong." His visit marked my first real human contact since the termination. As I made coffee with shaking hands, James revealed why he had risked his position to see me. "I brought something," he said, removing a USB drive from his pocket. "I've been making copies of certain emails and documents ever since things started getting weird. I figured you might need them someday." The drive contained dozens of internal communications that painted a disturbing picture. Email threads between Richard, Thomas, and Diana detailed plans for my removal dating back nearly 3 months. They had systematically built a case based on distorted interpretations of normal business decisions. Most revealing was a document about Richard's special contract tied to GlobalCore, though crucial details remained redacted in the version James had accessed. "They've been planning this for months," James explained. "After you left, things got even stranger. They brought in consultants to audit all your projects. Richard personally took over the GlobalCore relationship, and they made everyone who worked closely with you sign additional confidentiality agreements." "Why would they go to such lengths?" I asked. James hesitated. "Some people are talking. Natalie has been in closed-door meetings with legal every day. And I overheard Trevor telling someone that half the executive team didn't know the real reason for your termination." As James prepared to leave, he shared one final piece of information. "Not everyone believes what happened at the town hall. Your team knows how much you did for them and for the company. Several people have quietly updated their resumes. Nobody trusts leadership anymore." His visit sparked something beyond the numbness that had enveloped me. The deliberate nature of the conspiracy demanded understanding and, potentially, response. I spent the night reviewing the documents, identifying patterns and inconsistencies that might explain the extreme measures taken against me. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number. Coffee at Riverside Park. 2 hours. Come alone. Important. The sender had to be Natalie. Her distinctive way of phrasing things was unmistakable. We met at a secluded bench overlooking the river, far from corporate eyes. Natalie looked exhausted. The confidence that had always characterized her bearing notably diminished. I have 15 minutes before my absence becomes suspicious, she said without preamble. I should have warned you more clearly, but I was bound by confidentiality and my own legal exposure. What happened to you wasn't about performance or ethics. It was about money, a lot of money. She explained that Richard's contract contained a special clause regarding GlobalCore, the client I had brought to Techvision. If the client remained with the company for exactly 5 years, Richard would receive a $15 million personal bonus separate from his normal compensation. Additionally, the company would retain $71 million in guaranteed contract revenue, totaling $86 million. But there was a catch, she continued. The contract specified that the executive who originally secured the client couldn't retain primary relationship management through the 5-year mark. But Richard and Thomas realized they could create a loophole. By firing me? I asked, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the deception. Precisely. By terminating you 1 day before the 5-year mark and creating a false narrative about ethical violations, they could argue the spirit of the contract was fulfilled while removing you from the equation. Richard gets his $15 million, and you lose your position, reputation, and the substantial equity that would have vested next month. The company IPO plans that I had accidentally discovered now made perfect sense. My equity stake would have been worth millions once Techvision went public. By firing me before vesting, that equity returned to the company pool, primarily benefiting existing executives. Why the public humiliation? I asked. Why not a private termination? They needed witnesses and documentation of severe misconduct to justify breaking the GlobalCore contract terms. A quiet departure wouldn't protect them legally. The town hall provided 300 witnesses to their fabricated narrative. As Natalie prepared to leave, she offered one final piece of advice. Contact Whitney Barnes. She specializes in corporate malfeasance and executive wrongful termination. If anyone can help you fight this, she can. That afternoon, I reached out to Whitney Barnes, a partner at Hargrove Legal with a formidable reputation for handling complex corporate cases. Her initial consultation revealed both shock at the evidence and confidence in our position. This goes beyond wrongful termination, Whitney explained, reviewing the documents. Their potential securities fraud given the pending IPO, breach of fiduciary duty, and definite defamation. The public nature of your dismissal was a tactical error on their part. It provides clear evidence of intent to harm. Over the next days, more evidence arrived unexpectedly. Elaine, my former analyst, secretly provided internal financial projections showing how the timing of my termination correlated exactly with contract anniversary dates and equity vesting schedules. These documents connected the final dots, revealing the complete picture of calculated corporate betrayal. As the full scope of the deception became clear, something shifted within me. The fog of depression lifted, replaced by clarity of purpose. This wasn't simply about personal vindication, though that mattered. It was about accountability for those who abused power and betrayed trust, about ensuring others wouldn't face similar injustice. I am not going to let them get away with this, I told Whitney during our strategy session. But I want to be smart, not emotional. What our next step? We build the case methodically, Whitney replied. Gather evidence, secure testimonies, and prepare for multiple contingencies. Then, when everything is in place, we strike precisely and decisively. That night, I developed a comprehensive plan with clearly defined objectives. I would seek justice through legal channels, protect my professional reputation, ensure GlobalCore understood the truth, and ultimately hold Techvision leadership accountable for their actions. Most importantly, I would reclaim my sense of professional identity and purpose, regardless of the outcome. For the first time since the termination, I slept soundly. The path forward would be challenging, but I was no longer a passive victim of circumstances beyond my control. I had agency, evidence, and a strategic plan. The company that had orchestrated my public downfall had unwittingly provided the very tools I needed to fight back. With Whitney guidance, we built a comprehensive legal case documenting every aspect of my wrongful termination. Each allegation made during the town hall was systematically refuted with performance reports, client testimonials, and project documentation. We established a clear timeline showing the correlation between my firing and the 5-year GlobalCore contract anniversary, creating a compelling narrative of intentional contract manipulation. The most difficult decision involved reaching out to Jessica Taylor, my primary contact at GlobalCore, and someone I considered both a valued client and friend. If Techvision had lied to me, they had almost certainly misrepresented the situation to GlobalCore as well. We met discreetly at a restaurant 30 miles from the city, minimizing the chance of being seen by industry connections. Jessica's expression upon seeing me reflected both concern and confusion. "Julie, what happened?" she asked immediately. "Richard told us you had resigned following some internal policy issues. Then we got an official notice about ethics violations. None of it made sense given our experience working with you." I explained the situation carefully, providing only documented facts rather than emotional interpretations. Jessica's face transformed from confusion to shock and then anger as the true picture emerged. "They specifically told us you had chosen to leave the company," she said, shaking her head. "They claimed the transition had been planned for months and you had recommended Trevor as your replacement. GlobalCore values transparency above all else. This deliberate deception changes everything." The relationship between GlobalCore and Techvision extended beyond our AI implementation to include 3 additional service contracts worth millions annually. Jessica revealed that these contracts were currently under review for renewal. "We need continuity to maintain our systems," she explained. "That's why we didn't question the transition initially. But if Techvision leadership is willing to fabricate ethics violations against their own chief innovation officer, how can we trust any of their representations to us?" I offered to provide independent consulting services to ensure GlobalCore operations would continue smoothly, regardless of their decisions about Techvision. This wasn't about revenge, I emphasized, but about maintaining the innovative systems we had built together. Jessica agreed to discuss the situation with GlobalCore executive team and their legal department. Meanwhile, Whitney legal team meticulously documented all evidence with proper chain of custody protocols. Each email, performance review, and contract document was cataloged and authenticated for potential court proceedings. Anonymous tips to 2 board members raised concerns about potential legal and ethical violations by executive leadership, specifically highlighting the suspicious timing around my termination. Our investigation uncovered something even more damning. Richard had done something similar to 2 previous executives, though on a smaller scale. Both had left quietly with severance packages and strict non-disclosure agreements after bringing in significant clients. The pattern suggested my case wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a systematic approach to claiming credit and compensation for others' achievements. As our legal preparation progressed, Techvision stock experienced unusual volatility. Industry analysts began questioning leadership stability after rumors of executive conflicts emerged. Richard made increasingly frequent media appearances, emphasizing company strength and innovation pipeline. His desperate attempts to shore up the GlobalCore relationship became evident as he personally hosted their executives for a lavish retreat. I connected with 3 former Techvision employees who had experienced similar though less public dismissals. Their testimonies strengthened our case by establishing a pattern of behavior. One had documentation of Richard taking credit for their primary client acquisition shortly before their departure, receiving a substantial bonus tied to that relationship. With our evidence compiled, Whitney filed a formal legal complaint detailing wrongful termination, defamation, breach of contract, and tortious interference with business relationships. The comprehensive filing included over 200 pages of supporting documentation and sworn statements from former colleagues. The complaint specifically highlighted the suspicious timing relative to the GlobalCore contract anniversary and my equity vesting schedule. Techvision initial response came swiftly. A dismissive letter from their legal team characterizing my claims as the desperate actions of a disgruntled former employee. They offered a minimal settlement with extensive non-disclosure requirements, clearly hoping to resolve the matter quickly and quietly. The lowball offer only confirmed we had a strong case. As part of our strategic approach, we arranged for an industry newsletter to publish a carefully worded article questioning leadership decisions at Techvision. Without making specific allegations, the piece noted unusual executive departures preceding the planned IPO and referenced unnamed sources expressing concerns about client relationship management. The article was factually accurate while raising precisely the questions that would most concern investors and board members. The impact was immediate. GlobalCore officially notified Techvision that they were putting their contract renewal on hold pending the resolution of certain governance questions. 3 board members requested an emergency meeting with full legal representation present. Richard's public statements became increasingly defensive as he insisted the company remained on solid footing despite transitional challenges. Throughout this period, I maintained absolute professionalism in all communications. Despite personal attacks characterizing me as vindictive and unstable, I refrained from engaging in public disputes. Whitney advised that our strongest position came from remaining focused on documented facts rather than emotional appeals. Our most significant breakthrough came when we discovered Richard had attempted to delete incriminating emails discussing my termination plan. Techvision IT backup systems had preserved these communications, which explicitly discussed removing me before my equity vested and before the GlobalCore contract milestone. This evidence of intentional document destruction significantly strengthened our legal position. 2 months after filing our complaint, we received notice that the Techvision board had called a special session to address the mounting issues. Whitney would present our evidence directly to the board, while Techvision attorneys would defend the company actions. GlobalCore representatives would attend as interested parties given their substantial business relationship with the company. The night before this pivotal meeting, I reviewed our presentation materials one final time. The evidence had been organized chronologically, showing the systematic nature of the plot against me. The financial implications were highlighted clearly, including the $15 million bonus Richard stood to gain through the contract manipulation. Most importantly, the documents established that my termination occurred exactly 1 day before the 5-year threshold specified in the GlobalCore contract. For the first time since that humiliating town hall, I would face Richard and the executive team that had orchestrated my downfall. But this time, I would enter the room with truth and evidence on my side. The anxiety remained, but it was now accompanied by something more powerful. The quiet confidence that comes from fighting for what's right. The board meeting would determine not just my professional future, but potentially the fate of Techvision itself. The company IPO plans, executive compensation packages, and largest client relationship all hung in the balance. Whatever the outcome, I had already reclaimed something essential, my willingness to stand up against injustice regardless of the power imbalance involved. The board meeting took place in Techvision main conference room, the same space where I had presented countless innovations over the years. Now I entered as an adversary, accompanied by Whitney and 2 associates from her firm. Richard sat flanked by corporate attorneys, his typically confident demeanor noticeably strained. Board members occupied one side of the massive table, with GlobalCore representatives positioned directly across from them. The tension in the room was palpable. Board Chair Samuel Thompson opened the proceedings with a grim expression. This special session has been called to address serious allegations regarding the termination of Julie Harrison and related contractual matters. We will hear both sides presented fully before deliberations. Whitney's presentation was methodical and devastating. She began with my performance record, systematically dismantling each alleged ethical violation with documented evidence. Performance reviews, client testimonials, and project outcomes created an irrefutable picture of exceptional leadership and integrity. Several board members took extensive notes, expressions growing increasingly concerned. The most powerful moment came when Whitney presented the timeline correlation between my termination and contractual milestones. She displayed a calendar highlighting the GlobalCore 5-year anniversary, my equity vesting date, and my termination all occurring within a 72-hour window. Ms. Harrison's termination occurred exactly 1 day before the 5-year GlobalCore contract milestone, she stated clearly. This timing was not coincidental but carefully calculated to trigger specific contract clauses while preventing her equity from vesting prior to the planned IPO. Richard Attorney attempted to interject with procedural objections, but Whitney continued relentlessly, presenting the recovered emails discussing the termination strategy. The documentation showed explicit awareness of timing, implications, and financial benefits to certain executives, particularly Richard. When the company legal counsel finally presented their defense, it centered on technical interpretations of employment at-will provisions and broad definitions of performance issues. Their arguments seemed increasingly hollow as Whitney responded with specific evidence contradicting each point. The pivotal moment arrived when Techvision General Counsel attempted to explain away the contract timing. Board member Alicia Fernandez interrupted him mid-sentence. "I would like to see the exact language of this GlobalCore contract clause that keeps being referenced," she requested. After a tense exchange about confidentiality, the contract was finally displayed on screen. The critical section read, "Upon successful maintenance of the GlobalCore relationship for a period of 5 years from initial signing, with continued management by the original relationship executive, a retention bonus of $15 million shall be paid to the Chief Executive Officer in recognition of stable client management, in addition to guaranteed minimum contract revenue of $71 million. A stunned silence followed as the implications became unmistakable. My termination had been explicitly designed to circumvent the requirement for the original relationship executive while still allowing Richard to claim his enormous bonus. Richard attempted to justify his actions, claiming all decisions had been made in the company's best interest. His explanation grew increasingly convoluted as he insisted technical performance issues had been the true motivation behind my dismissal. The contrast between his tangled justifications and the straightforward evidence Whitney had presented could not have been more stark. Jessica Taylor, representing GlobalCore, finally spoke. "Our company values transparency and integrity above all else. The evidence presented today suggests our largest vendor deliberately misrepresented circumstances surrounding leadership changes that directly impacted our operations. This raises fundamental questions about whether we can continue this business relationship." The board excused everyone except members for closed deliberations. 2 hours later, we were called back into the conference room. Samuel Thompson's face was grave as he delivered their decision. After reviewing all evidence and consulting with outside counsel, the board has determined that serious breaches of fiduciary duty and company policy occurred in connection with Julie Harrison's termination. We find the timing and manner of dismissal represented an improper attempt to manipulate contract terms for personal financial gain. He turned to address me directly. "Ms. Harrison, on behalf of the Techvision board, I extend a formal apology for the manner of your termination and the damage to your professional reputation. We have unanimously approved a settlement agreement addressing all your concerns. The terms Whitney had proposed were accepted in full. A public retraction of all statements regarding alleged ethical violations, financial compensation for damages and lost equity, leadership restructuring to prevent future abuse, and implementation of new corporate governance standards. Most significantly, Richard was removed as CEO effective immediately, with Natalie appointed as interim chief executive. Diana and Thomas also faced consequences for their roles in the scheme. Diana resigned the following day, while Thomas was placed on administrative leave, pending further investigation into financial improprieties discovered during the case review. Several board members approached me privately after the meeting, expressing shock at what had transpired under their oversight. One admitted they had approved my termination based entirely on Richard representations, never questioning the suspicious timing or demanding proper documentation. In the days that followed, I received multiple offers to return to Techvision in various executive capacities. After careful consideration, I declined them all. The experience had fundamentally changed my relationship with the company and clarified my professional priorities. Instead, I chose independence, launching my own innovation consultancy focused on ethical business practices and transparent client relationships. James and Elaine both resigned from Techvision to join my new venture, bringing valuable skills and shared commitment to building something better. GlobalCore became our first major client, expanding our engagement beyond the original Techvision scope to include ethical AI implementation across their entire organization. The healing process wasn't immediate or linear. I worked with a therapist specializing in workplace trauma, gradually processing the betrayal and public humiliation. Building a supportive professional community helped restore my confidence and sense of purpose. Each small victory with the new consultancy contributed to rebuilding what had been so deliberately destroyed. Techvision made a public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, implementing policy changes designed to prevent similar situations. Their planned IPO was delayed by 18 months while they restructured leadership and governance. When they eventually went public, the offering was successful but significantly smaller than originally projected. The experience taught me crucial lessons about corporate politics and self-protection. I now meticulously document everything, trust my instincts when something feels wrong, and maintain independence from any single organization. Most importantly, I learned that ethical behavior isn't merely aspirational, but must be actively defended, sometimes at great personal cost. Building my new company culture on transparency and fairness became my most meaningful professional achievement. We established clear policies against taking credit for others' work, implemented 360-degree performance reviews for all leadership positions, and created structural safeguards against power concentration. The personal growth that emerged through this painful journey surprised me most. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy my career ultimately freed me to build something more aligned with my values. The public humiliation that seemed unbearable became a powerful testimony to resilience. The professional identity I thought permanently damaged was instead reconstructed on a stronger foundation. While I haven't forgiven Richard and his accomplices, I no longer allow their actions to dictate my emotional state or professional choices. Their betrayal was ultimately about their character, not my worth. This perspective brings a freedom no corporate title or compensation package could provide. For anyone experiencing workplace injustice or betrayal, remember this: documentation is your shield, persistence your weapon, and integrity your ultimate vindication. No setback, however devastating, determines your final story unless you surrender the pen. Stand firm, seek proper counsel, and trust that truth has a persistence that deception cannot match. What warning signs have you noticed in your own workplace? Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted professionally? Share your experiences in the comments and let others know what boundaries you established afterward. If this story helped you recognize toxic dynamics in your own career, please like and subscribe for more insights, and share with someone who might need this perspective. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to vindication.